with Marty Bureau. Marty, here's an observation I've made. Nothing seems to come easy for this Maple Leafs team.
The last few days changed everything in Toronto. One injury report shifted the front office clock. A key defenseman went down again. Medical meetings followed. Trade calls increased. League insiders took notice. By midweek, the Maple Leafs were facing a blue line crisis that could not wait. The pressure moved straight to the general manager's desk, and the response signaled something big was coming. The situation escalated when Chris Tanev suffered another groin injury, placing his availability in serious doubt. Reports confirmed that Tanev was dealing with a recurring issue that required specialist evaluation. Reported that surgery is being discussed and that his recovery could extend into late April or early May. That timeline places most of the regular season in jeopardy and immediately altered Toronto's defensive planning. Tanev had only recently returned from an earlier injury before going down again. His brief return did not stabilize the blue line. Instead, his absence reopened a defensive gap that the Maple Leafs had hoped was closed. According to Daily Faceoff, Toronto was allowing 3.34 goals per game at the time, ranking 27th in the NHL. Those numbers reflected sustained defensive strain rather than a short slump. Head coach Craig Berube addressed the issue publicly. Speaking to media, Berube stated that Tanev was going to miss some time. No return date was offered. No short-term recovery window was outlined. That absence of clarity forced the front office to begin contingency planning immediately, as the team could not rely on internal replacements alone. Brad Treliving's role shifted rapidly. The Maple Leafs general manager may not have a choice but to make a trade. That wording appeared repeatedly across reports. The statement reflected roster limitations, defensive performance metrics, and the reality of the NHL calendar. Waiting for full medical certainty risked losing trade leverage as internal and league deadlines approached. Salary cap rules added pressure. Inside the Rink reported that placing a player on long-term injured reserve does not allow unlimited cap flexibility. Any relief gained must align with strict league regulations. Teams cannot exceed the cap freely once the playoffs begin. This meant that any defensive addition would need to fit both short-term needs and long-term cap compliance. Trade discussions intensified quietly. Names began to surface in league reporting. While no deal was confirmed, the reports indicated that the Maple Leafs were exploring experienced defensemen capable of handling top 4 minutes. Trade deadlines elsewhere in the league added urgency. Maple Leafs Daily reported that some teams, including Calgary, were working toward internal deadlines tied to the Olympic break. Those timelines mattered. If Toronto waited too long, potential trade partners could move assets elsewhere or raise asking prices. Acting early carried risk. Acting late carried cost. Reported that the Maple Leafs were actively reassessing their trade deadline approach because of Tanev's status. The reassessment was not framed as optional. It was framed as necessary. Defensive depth became the central issue in internal discussions, overtaking other roster considerations that had been present earlier in the season. Asset limitations shaped every scenario. Editor-in-Chief reported that Toronto does not control a first-round draft pick until 2028. That restricted leverage in negotiations for top 4 defensemen. Teams selling defensive help often seek premium picks or high-end prospects. Toronto's options were narrower, increasing the importance of timing and cap alignment. The salary cap remained a constant constraint. Inside the Rink emphasized that LTIR relief cannot be treated as free space. Any added salary must comply with league limits throughout the season and playoffs. That reality limited the pool of viable targets and required careful coordination between medical staff and management. Clutch Points described Tanev's injury as part of a broader pattern of defensive availability issues for Toronto. That context mattered. The Leafs were not replacing one absence in isolation. They were managing cumulative risk. Each injury increased reliance on fewer players and reduced flexibility with each passing week.
What followed did not bring relief. It brought pressure. And inside the organization, attention shifted fast toward what comes next. The Toronto Maple Leafs made a decisive coaching change by firing assistant coach Marc Savard. The move came as the team's power play ranked last in the NHL. Savard had been responsible for running the man advantage unit since joining the staff in June 2024. The decision was confirmed and followed weeks of declining results in a critical area of the game. At the time of the change, Toronto's power play was converting at 13.3%. That figure was the lowest mark in the league. In the month of December alone, the Leafs scored just 2 power play goals on 27 opportunities. Those struggles continued during a stretch in which the team went 1-4 and won over 6 games, sliding toward the bottom of the Atlantic Division. The timing of the firing was notable. The Maple Leafs were not making a head coaching change. Instead, management targeted the assistant directly linked to the failing unit. Savard's role was clear. He oversaw power play structure, puck movement, and zone entries. His removal signaled that the organization viewed special teams as a central problem that required immediate action. Savard's coaching history included prior work with head coach Craig Berube. The two had worked together with the St. Louis Blues before reuniting in Toronto. Savard also brought experience as a former NHL forward, having played 807 career games and recorded 706 points. Despite that background, the power play did not show sustained improvement under his watch. General manager Brad Treliving addressed the change shortly after it was announced. He stated that Craig Berube's position as head coach was secure. That message narrowed the focus of accountability. The move placed responsibility on the power play alone, rather than the overall coaching system or roster structure. The immediate aftermath did not deliver a turnaround. In the game following Savard's dismissal, the Maple Leafs went 0 for 2 on the power play in a 6-3 win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. The team earned the victory, but the man advantage unit remained scoreless. The issue that led to the firing was still present on the ice. Following Savard's exit, assistant coach Derek Lalonde was assigned responsibility for the power play. No external replacement was announced. The organization chose to adjust internally, keeping the same personnel on the ice while altering the voice behind the bench. The effectiveness of that decision had yet to be measured, and the pressure did not ease. It shifted. The pressure surrounding the power play grew heavier because of the players involved. Toronto's man advantage unit included Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares. Despite that group, production remained limited. Across 35 games, the Maple Leafs recorded only 12 power play goals in 90 chances. During the same span, the team allowed 4 shorthanded goals against, reducing overall effectiveness even further. Those numbers followed the team through multiple stretches of the season. On a recent road trip before the coaching change, Toronto went 0 for 10 on the power play. Individual games during that trip included 0 for 5 and 0 for 4 performances with the man advantage. Each missed opportunity added to the urgency inside the organization and intensified scrutiny from league observers. After the firing, the Maple Leafs entered the holiday break without announcing a structural overhaul of the power play. The unit continued to feature the same personnel. The difference was the staff direction. Derek Lalonde assumed responsibility for special teams, while head coach Craig Berube remained in place. Management made it clear that this was a targeted adjustment, not a broader reset. The standings added context to the situation. At the time of the coaching move, Toronto sat 23rd overall in the NHL. The team was 5 points out of a wild card spot and near the bottom of the Atlantic Division. Those numbers highlighted how little margin for error remained as the season approached its midpoint. William Nylander's performance in the first game after the change provided contrast. He recorded 2 goals and 2 assists against Pittsburgh, ending an 11-game goal drought. The offensive output helped secure a win, but it did not come on the power play. Even during one of the team's stronger offensive nights, the man advantage unit stayed quiet. Captain Austin Matthews had previously addressed the importance of special teams earlier in the season. He emphasized that power play opportunities often decide close games. His comments came before the coaching change, during a period when the unit was already trending downward. Since then, the numbers had not shifted. The Maple Leafs did not signal that further coaching changes were imminent. Brad Treliving's public comments reinforced stability at the head coach level. That left the power play as the focal point of internal accountability. With Savard gone and responsibilities reassigned, results became the only remaining measure. The next set of games following the break carried added weight. The power play was no longer tied to the coach who designed it. Each opportunity with the man advantage now carried broader implications, not just for scoring, but for how the organization's decision would be judged as the season moved forward. A coach was removed. The team was losing ground. Attention turned toward the bench. But instead of another dismissal, Brad Treliving delivered a message no one was prepared for. It wasn't damage control. It wasn't silence. It was a clear decision that reshaped how this season will be judged from this point forward. The decision came during a stretch of mounting tension inside the Toronto Maple Leafs organization. Results had stalled. The power play had collapsed. The team sat near the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings. One day earlier, assistant coach Marc Savard was fired after the Leafs' power play fell to last in the NHL, converting at just 13.3%. The move immediately triggered wider speculation about the future of the coaching staff. Savard had been responsible for the power play. Toronto had scored only 12 power play goals through more than a third of the season. In December alone, the team recorded just 2 power play goals across 27 opportunities. The Leafs were also outscored 14-4 during a 3-game road trip shortly before the firing. At that moment, the organization stood at 15 wins, 15 losses, and 5 overtime losses. Speculation escalated quickly. The firing of an assistant coach often signals deeper changes. Media attention shifted toward head coach Craig Berube, who was hired to stabilize the team after years of postseason failures. Questions centered on whether Savard's dismissal was the first step toward a larger reset behind the bench. Brad Treliving addressed those questions directly. Speaking to reporters, the Maple Leafs general manager made his position clear. "I want to make it clear. I support Craig fully," Treliving said. He rejected suggestions of internal division and dismissed claims of a disconnect between management and the coaching staff. He stated plainly that the situation required improvement across the entire organization. Treliving emphasized that Savard's firing did not isolate responsibility to one individual. "The players have responsibility, and this doesn't absolve anybody," he said. The comment reinforced that accountability extended beyond the assistant coach and included players, staff, and management. The timing of the statement surprised many observers. Public endorsements of head coaches during active struggles are uncommon. In this case, it came less than 24 hours after a staff firing and while the team remained in last place in the Atlantic Division. Treliving also declined to discuss future hypotheticals, stating he would not engage in speculation about what might happen next. Brad Treliving acknowledged that the power play struggles were a factor in the decision to remove Marc Savard, but he framed the move as an adjustment rather than a turning point. He stated that the change was one management could make immediately, while broader improvements would require contributions from players and staff. The organization confirmed that Derek Lalonde would take on a lead role with the power play, signaling continuity rather than overhaul. The endorsement of Berube also came hours before a key response game. On December 23rd, the Maple Leafs defeated the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-3. The win snapped a 3-game losing streak. Max Domi scored the game-winning goal, ending his own 23-game goal drought. William Nylander recorded 2 goals and 2 assists. The result provided short-term relief, but it did not alter the broader context surrounding the team's season. Media coverage following the game noted the contrast between the on-ice response and the underlying concerns that remained unresolved. The Leafs were still positioned near the bottom of the Atlantic Division. The margin for error remained narrow. With Berube's job publicly secured, responsibility now rested more heavily on player performance and lineup execution. Treliving's remarks were also closely examined because of their timing. Assistant coach firings often precede further changes, but multiple reports indicated that no additional dismissals were planned in the immediate future. Sources stated that neither Berube nor Treliving was considered in danger of removal at that stage. The organization's direction was described as corrective rather than react. By declining to discuss future contingencies, Treliving limited speculation but also raised expectations. The message established a clear standard. Results would need to improve within the existing structure. With no further buffer layers between management and coaching, the next stretch of games would carry increased weight. The Maple Leafs entered the break with their leadership structure intact, their struggles documented, and their path defined. After the general manager's unexpected stance, attention turned away from the bench and back toward the ice, where outcomes would now speak louder than statements.
How hot is the seat on the coach Craig Berube in your estimation?
I mean, it's quite hot. I don't know if you've seen the news, it's just breaking now, but his assistant coach, Marc Savard, has been fired by the team. You know, obviously, under Savard's watch is the power play, and that's been, I'd say, one of the main issues that's led to where the Leafs record is right now. And, you know, obviously, management is in a position where they don't want to fire Craig Berube.
Toronto Maple Leafs made a move that no one inside the locker room could ignore. One coach was removed. Responsibility shifted fast. Numbers exposed a collapse that could not be defended. A power play fell to the bottom of the league, and patience ended quietly but firmly. This decision sent a message, and its real impact had only just begun to unfold. The Toronto Maple Leafs confirmed they have fired assistant coach Marc Savard during the middle of the regular season. The announcement followed a stretch of poor results and a sharp decline in special teams performance. Savard had been responsible for the team's power play, which ranked last in the National Hockey League at the time of the decision. Savard joined the Maple Leafs coaching staff in June 2024. He was hired as part of head coach Craig Berube's staff after Berube took over the team earlier that offseason. The hiring reunited Savard with Berube, as the two had previously worked together with the St. Louis Blues during the 2019-20 season. At the time, Savard was dismissed. The team was positioned near the bottom of the Eastern Conference standings and sat last in the Atlantic Division. Over their previous 6 games, Toronto posted a 1-4-1 record, adding to mounting pressure around the club's performance. The power play played a central role in the coaching change. Toronto's unit was converting at a rate of 13.3%, the lowest mark in the league. During the month of December, the team scored just 2 power play goals across 27 opportunities. In one recent stretch, the Leafs went scoreless on 10 consecutive power play chances during a road trip. This season's numbers represented a sharp drop from the previous year. During the 2024 to 2025 season, the Maple Leafs power play finished at 24.8%, ranking 9th in the NHL. That unit featured many of the same core players now struggling to produce with the man advantage. The decision came shortly after a 5-1 loss to the Dallas Stars. In that game, Toronto again failed to generate offense on special teams. Days earlier, the Washington Capitals shut out the Maple Leafs 4-0, ending Toronto's streak of 71 consecutive games without being shut out. In that matchup, the Leafs went 0 for 5 on the power play. Following Savard's dismissal, the Maple Leafs did not announce an external replacement. Instead, the organization stated that assistant coaches Derek Lalonde and Mike Van Ryn would absorb the power play responsibilities moving forward. The team indicated no immediate plans to expand the coaching staff. Savard's departure marked the first coaching change of the season for Toronto. The move came just before the club's final game ahead of the holiday break, with the team scheduled to face the Pittsburgh Penguins next. Tension now shifted toward how the internal changes would impact results on the ice and whether further decisions would follow. Marc Savard's firing closed a short but closely watched chapter in his coaching career. Before joining Toronto, Savard had stepped away from coaching in September 2020 to focus on family matters. His return with the Maple Leafs marked his first NHL coaching role since that departure. The organization assigned him responsibility for offensive structure and power play execution, areas that later became central to the decision to remove him. The team's struggles were not limited to one opponent or one road trip. Over a 6-game stretch in December, Toronto collected only 1 point in the standing. That run included losses by multiple goals and games in which the Maple Leafs failed to score more than once. During that span, the power play did not register consistent improvement. Head coach Craig Berube addressed the situation following recent losses, stating that the team's execution had not met required standards. While Berube did not publicly assign blame to any single individual, the coaching change indicated an internal shift in responsibility. Savard's role was directly tied to the unit producing the weakest results on the roster. After the decision, the Maple Leafs confirmed that Derek Lalonde and Mike Van Ryn would manage special teams duties moving forward. Lalonde previously worked with power play units during his coaching career, while Van Ryn remained responsible for defensive systems. The organization did not announce structural changes beyond the redistribution of duty. The timing of the move placed focus on the remaining schedule before the mid-season break. Toronto entered its next matchup with a need to stabilize performance before falling further behind in the standing. The coaching staff now operated with fewer voices behind the bench and increased scrutiny on in-game adjustments. Savard's exit also followed a pattern seen across the league, where teams have made assistant-level changes rather than head coach moves during early or mid-season downturns. In Toronto's case, the decision underscored the importance placed on immediate results. With no external hire announced, attention remained on how quickly internal changes could affect outcomes, and whether the move would be the last adjustment made during a season already marked by instability.
With Marty Bureau. Marty, here's an observation I've made. Nothing seems to come easy for this Maple Leafs team.
Another hit, another name added to the list, and suddenly the Toronto Maple Leafs are facing a situation they did not plan for. A key defenseman goes down mid-game. The starting goalie is ruled out again. Roster moves follow fast. The lineup shifts under pressure, and what comes next could change how the Leafs survive this stretch. The warning signs appeared during the game against the San Jose Sharks.